President Zuma says he wants to speed up development in Africa. He's hoping to use the highly anticipated BRICS Development Bank to fund it. Let's go live to Cape Town. eNCA anchor Eleni Giokos speaking to us from the World Economic Forum on Africa. Eleni, good evening to you. A big focus today, I understand, on competitiveness, but I guess the jury is still out in many respects.
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of the big reports that we've been waiting for quite some time, and it basically shows where all African countries stand and what's really startling here. And yes, South Africa and Mauritius come out tops. It's no surprise that these two countries are still the leading countries in Africa when it comes to competitiveness, because we have such strong financial institutions, and also our infrastructure growth has been far better than what we've seen in other emerging markets. But what is of concern is that competitiveness with regards to the rest of the emerging market world, so the other big high growth areas globally, Africa falls behind. And there's also massive gaps between what we see with regards to Nigeria and South Africa, Nigeria and other African countries, that yes, some countries are starting to grow in competitiveness, but when we compare like for like, we basically really fail. We're seeing massive gaps, and it's also because of the growth gap that we see on the continent. And yes, we're looking at high growth rates, Jeremy, but remember, we're coming off a very low base relative to other emerging markets and the developed world as well.
So it's all very well to identify the problem, but was there any creative thinking as far as increasing productivity is concerned? I know that you were speaking to the Trade and Industry Minister, Rob Davies, a little earlier. He was telling you about structural changes that need to be implemented. Again, what are they and what sort of timeframes?
Okay, fantastic. So this is what we're focusing on, structural changes that need to occur. And the key theme is integration. So when we posed the question to Rob Davies a little earlier about how do you create integration, how do you work together with other African countries when we can't even get the trade barrier issue right? And we've been working on this for many years. And he's saying that we have to start putting our differences aside and start focusing on changes on the ground. And the first port of entry is to try and ensure that infrastructure growth happens on the African continent, and it not only happens in individual nations, but also focusing on transport networks, moving from one country to the other. He was talking about making sure that we work on the manufacturing front, that we work with regards to beneficiation. So all these things are things that we've heard before, but we're hoping that the conversations that are being had every single year at various summits are going to materialize into something that we see different on the ground. And he promises us that things are going to change quite extensively. He was alluding to various trade agreements that we've had with the likes of Nigeria. And of course, when it comes to the manufacturing sector in specific, he's quite excited about that specific project that we're working on.
President Zuma, of course, pinning his colours, I guess pinning his hopes to the BRICS Development Bank. Any further details emerging on that new institution?
All right, so Jeremy, we're sitting in this plenary session. It's the opening session for the World Economic Forum, well, the first public one at least. And we had the head of the African Development Bank, Donald Kaberuka, coming out and saying that he's actually very disappointed with the outcomes of the BRICS summit with regards to the development bank, saying the money that has been put on the table right now is not good enough, it's not being fast-tracked enough, and apart from that, that they're focusing on funding structures as well. So President Jacob Zuma then responded to Donald Kaberuka's criticism, saying that it's very difficult to just make things happen when it comes to a development bank, that structures need to be sorted out. Where do we get the funding? Where is it situated? President Zuma promised that we'll get that kind of detail next year, and also admitting to the fact that it's going to take time, and even the countries that are in need are going to have to wait until they start making sure that the processes are in place. So basically, it's going to take some time. The IMF came out and said that they are willing to work with the BRICS Development Bank, but we haven't really heard anything concrete as yet, nothing new right now when it comes to the development bank.
So President Zuma's assertions about self-sufficiency perhaps ringing a little hollow.
Absolutely. I mean, well, you know, we could say that everything we've actually heard thus far coming through from President Zuma and a lot of the big names out of the World Economic Forum, basically reiterating the points that we've actually seen. What we really do want to see is deals on the table, proper projects that we can focus on. And what is quite exciting is that the World Economic Forum is allowing this kind of conversation to occur when it comes to infrastructure. And I suppose when I look at the conversations and the buzzwords that are going around the corridors, it is about infrastructure growth. And they know that if they do not focus on infrastructure, Jeremy, then we are going to see lower growth on the African continent. And sadly, it's going to affect employment and it's going to affect investment as well. But what is exciting is that a lot of private sector, of course, officials have been here over the past couple of days, and they are excited about putting more money into Africa, and we're hoping that it's going to happen sooner rather than later, because there's always a lag, unfortunately, with regards to conversation and what we see happening on the ground.
All right, Eleni Giokos, we'll check in again with you at around 7:30 this evening here on Newsnight, live from the World Economic Forum on Africa in Cape Town.
News that moves. eNCA.com.